So the article, the last portion of the article is the shifting Western role. So I think this is where, now that we have all this data, now that we see what's happening, where the Spirit is moving, what God is doing, we do have to wrestle with this.
Totally. As one of my friends told me, after some people read this section here, I may have to get somebody else to go out and crank my car in the morning. That's a Chicago joke. You know, the mob, they just blow somebody up, they go out and crank the car. You've seen it. Well, I mean, the shifting Western role is a huge issue in missions. Well, the last part of this article makes it sound like we shouldn't be sending missionaries, or or at least we should be doing something different. Mm-hmm. And that's true. You inevitably, when you start out talking to Dwight and he says the Thai are going to reach the Thai, mm-hmm. well, the implication of that is, and now the numbers are showing it, that the most effective people to reach Thai people are these Thai evangelists and Thai pastors and Thai workers and Thai lay people who are just leaving their baking job and going out in the evenings and evangelizing. They're the ones having the greatest move toward God in the history of the country. It's not being led by a missionary. Me and Dwight are just like standing there watching all this happen. It's not being led by us. We didn't cook this thing up for this article. Not at all. We're watching what God is doing, and it has demanded the discussion of what is the role of the missionary, let's say, for example, in Thailand. If this can happen without us, how long do they really need us? So it's a question that I asked myself 40 years ago, by the way. And that's mentioned in the article, too.
Yeah, so on page 37 in the magazine, it says, Kraft wrestled with his role as a missionary in Thailand decades ago. So give us a little background on that wrestling.
Well, for one thing, back in the 70s, Vietnam War was just over. The only country that we could go to in Southeast Asia that would receive missionaries was Thailand. Mm-hmm. So I determined that, Thailand was where God was calling me. I want to be a missionary in Thailand. I mean, it's like Southeast Asia is going down. They're in war, and now the war's over, and the U.S. pulled out, and so everybody's going to need Jesus. I mean, when I read the statistics back then, it was like less than 1% Christian in that whole region. So it was even worse then than it is now. But 40 years ago, as God was calling me to go to Thailand, I felt such an urgency. I mean, I had 2 little kids, a 6-month-old, mm-hmm. and then a 22-month-old. And I decided that this mission effort was worth me selling my car for the price of buying one-way ticket to Thailand. So I loaded you and your brother and my wife Ramona, who is still with me, by the way, loading them in the airplane and loading our belongings in 7 oil 55-gallon drums with a closing lid and heading to Thailand to be a missionary. Beautiful country. Nobody spoke a word of English back then. Just rare to run into anybody that knew any English. So we land in the country. We don't know a thing, can't understand anything. We go up country, 8-hour bus ride at that point. We go up country to a small town next to a river, next to a chain of mountains. So the river was at the foot of the mountains in Tak, T-A-K. You can find it on a map. That's where we stayed when we first went. I was excited to get started as a missionary. Beautiful country, plenty of jungle, lots of places where missionaries had never gone before at that point. So I began to work with one of the local Thai Christians.
Mm-hmm.
He was a some law driver. Some law just means three-wheel. So it's a big tricycle made out of a bicycle that you carry passengers in. One of the lowest paid jobs in Thailand at that time was this person who would pedal people around, take people around. But he was born again, loved Jesus, wanted to get out to the villages on the weekend, so he would take his motorcycle, I would take my motorcycle, and off we'd go into a village somewhere, a remote village. And he would, of course, at that point, I didn't know much language at all. So he was the one doing the main, and I was listening and learning language from him. And he was teaching me Thai culture. Kunyak was his name. We get it. One of the places that was on his heart was this Lisu village. It's a tribal village near Masad, Thailand. And very mountainous, very rugged. Sometimes the bridges were washed out. And it was very difficult to get there, about 40 miles away, a little less, maybe 25 to 30 miles away from us, and into the mountains. So he and I would go up there. I had been a couple times, and this is the kind of village that, in my dreams that I came to reach, So it's a smoky, misty, mountainside village. I come in there. One time I came in and there were two guys with a pole over their shoulders carrying a tiger that they had killed. This is everything that a missionary, this is everything you would picture as a young missionary. It just totally blew me away. We'd get into the smoky little hut on the side of the mountain with the only 5 or 6 believers in that whole village, and Elder Yacht, in his Thai language, would try to speak to the leader of the Lisu Christians in Thai, and then he would translate it into Lisu, and I'm listening over here, and I'm just trying to learn a little Thai, and so we would go in there, and I remember one time, one of the most shocking things to me, it was a very interesting time. I took your older brother in, he was about 3 years old. Anyway, he got on the motorcycle with me. We went up to the village, and they just loved seeing these little white boys. They'd never seen little boys like that before, and so they were intrigued. They wanted us to have lunch with them that day. And I looked up, and around the edge of the hut, in the smoky cooking area of the hut, there was this, looked like tinsel at Christmas hanging around, only it didn't look like tinsel. It was pig intestines. All right?
Okay.
Stuffed with peppers, onions, other spices that they'd gotten out of the jungle, and just stuff it in there. I think they tried to clean it out first, but the pig guts were stuffed with these things, and they were just hung up there, and the smoke and thyme would kind of make jerky out of them with spices inside. So when visitors arrived, they would take a big section of that, whack it up, boil it, have it with rice. So I dipped some out, put in my plate, and Wes, your brother, he was so hungry. He dipped a bunch. And then he put it to his mouth, looked at me, and I'll never forget that look. Like, I can't eat this, I'm not eating this. There's something wrong with this, but he just wasn't used to it, that's all. But I had to eat his portion and my portion. And it was that kind of village, that kind of, and so I was living my dream as a missionary. Yeah. But of course I did not want anybody of the Lord and could not speak the language well enough to even, barely could eat, in that language or say thank you, for something. And in Lisu, I didn't know any Lisu words at all. So we're sitting there about to have a Bible study. And my Thai elder that was teaching me Thai spoke to the man and greeted him, and we were about to start the Bible study. And I noticed a young man sitting across from us that had not been coming to the small group. We only went up there a couple times a month. And I noticed this new young man. And I asked Elder Yacht, I said, find out from this, in Thai, I said, find out from this man who our guest is today. We'd like to greet him, you know. And to my surprise, the young man leaning against the wall over there in this hut said, "That's quite all right, brother. You can speak English today, and I'll just translate straight to Lisu." It was the last thing I ever thought I would hear in a tribal village on the side of a mountain where they carry tigers around and eat pig intestines. Was somebody speaking perfect Queen's English. He was a Lisu evangelist from Burma who had come over the mountain into Thailand to win Lisu and Lahu people to Christ. And his English was so good, of course, I had a good conversation with him. I said, "Well, brother, your English is great." "Oh, yes, I graduated seminary in Burma. And yes, I helped translate the Lisu language for their hymnal and for some other books in Lisu." And I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing in this village when that man is sitting here? What did I go to all this trouble for when this man can be ultimately multiple times more useful than I am? He'll do more in a month. It'll take me 3 or 4 years to get even close to what he can do in one day for me to do in a year, you know. So staggering. It was just that an overwhelming feeling of, I need to evaluate my missions thinking. And so I took him down to the valley where we lived. We fed him down there, and I carried on the conversation with him. Found out he had a vision to start a training school to train evangelists and pastors among the Lisu and Lahu. I thought it was the grandest thing I'd ever heard in my life. I said, "Oh my goodness, okay. Well, how about me not worrying too much about that village anymore, you know?" It was just natural for me to think like that. But that began a journey for me, in my mind, in my heart, as to what my role should be as a missionary anywhere. You know, what kind of fact. I didn't have that factor even in my mind when I went to Thailand. I had no dream that anybody would speak to me in perfect Queen's English with a seminary degree on the side of a mountain in Thailand. Had no clue that was even possible. So that started me on a journey 40 years ago to what honestly kind of culminates in what this article describes in this last section, the shifting Western role.
Right. So that kind of ties into kind of where we fit in, Reach a Village, and how we partner. I do like it in the article. It mentions that we sometimes will provide money for gas or other things like scripture and training and monitoring and mobilizing.
Yep. It's basically, from my experiences over the past 40 years, being involved with missions, being a missionary in 2 different countries, and then working in multiple countries, in Southeast Asia especially, became very, very obvious to me that the local people, like that young man I first met within my first year of being in the country, that there are multiple people God has called. And you know that young man quoted to me the Great Commission. When I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He said, "Well, God said, go into all the world." I said, yeah, but there's a border between the two countries. He said, he didn't mention that. He said, he didn't say anything about borders. He just said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. So I loved it. I loved that he had that same Great Commission spirit that I did. I was willing to leave my family and back home and bring my wife and kids to a jungle, sleep under a mosquito net, sell my car, ship my stuff in barrels. I was willing to do that. And here was a young man, a Lisu man, equally as willing to do it. Equally as willing to die for Jesus as I was. That's a staggering thought. So what is my role? So what is the role of the missionary? And the model of ministry that emerged over this past 40 years pushed me closer and closer and closer to working like we work. Reach a Village wants to see the gospel go out to villages until every village is reached.
Yeah.
Until Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. But in Mark, it even says, to every creature, every living thing should be within earshot of the gospel. So we think just because we have a church in Bangkok that we've reached Thailand, you need to go sleep that one off because there's something wrong with you if that's the way you think about missions. Jesus said, go and make sure that every person in the world has an opportunity to hear about Jesus. So I knew that the way to do that, just like Dwight said in the beginning of this article, the Thai are going to reach the Thai. And if you think about villages, there's nobody going to leave home and do all that in our day and age where there's no internet in the village. They're going to go and rare. 1 out of 1,000,000 people would go to that much trouble trying to reach an individual village. And if you knew that just 30 miles away there were a Thai church like FJCCA, why would I spend all that money and all that time to get out to that little village when they're moving in that direction anyway with the gospel? Mm-hmm. So the missions, we need to rethink and carefully look at our mission model that we've been using and say, all right, is it time for a shift of a new paradigm of missions? Is it time that we looked at the role of the missionary specifically and asked some very hard questions and did our homework to find out where the national church is, how mature they are, how many leaders they have, what kind of plan do they have to reach their own country, and how can I join them? If I want to be a missionary, and that's why I set the organization up like I did, and it mentions that here. Kraft set his organization up to find out what the Thai leaders need and to come alongside them. And that, if you want to know our mission model in Reach a Village, that's it.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. Hey, Brother Bob, do you go over there and teach your materials and train people all the time? I say, no, not really. I go over and find out what they need. I don't go in talking. I go in listening. I think there needs to be a huge shift in attitude when it comes to missions and missionaries. We need to rethink this. We need to look at the data, number one. Look at some hard data. Ask yourself some hard questions. Redefine the role of a missionary. Redefine how you evaluate the success of a missionary. All of those kind of things need to be rolled into a new thinking in our day and time. With this kind of technology like Dwight is putting forth, right. and it won't be long until there's a Thai person running that database. There's already a Thai person entering the data. How long is it going to be before a brilliant young Thai helps develop even the next stage of the data keeping process within Thailand for the Thai church?
Amen.
He'll know nuances and he'll know things, and the IT industry is growing to the point, and we're outsourcing all of our IT brains already anyway. Call centers are in every other country on earth. So it's like, why do they need me? So we really do need to take an honest look at the shifting Western role in missions. That's going to be a challenge for a lot of people. It really is.
Yeah. I think one of the most shocking quotes comes from a mega pastor. Is he from the Washington area?
Washington State.
Washington State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he says this: "The world has shifted and changed. I believe the day of the great white missionary is gone."
Whoa, that's going to hit some debate.
Yeah.
There's some people going to question that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read the article, you'll realize why he says that. And I happen to know that this pastor has been involved in missions, deeply concerned about Thailand for years,
Yeah.
and that this is the first real breakthrough he's seen. And and he explains a little bit about that in the last part of the article. So it's worth reading. It's worth reading. And I do hope you either pick up a copy somewhere, subscribe and get a copy sent to you, or at least get online and look at the digital version of it. And if you want to read the article and we've really piqued your interest, then go ahead and send us an email. We'll send you a link that opens only this article to you. And they've given us the privilege of doing that for people in circumstances like this, that we can give you that kind of link that this article will open up for you to be able to read. So don't be afraid to email us and say, send me the link. I want to read it. If you have it. If you have read it, then take the time to send us an email and give us your thoughts. I mean, a lot of what's expressed here has been shaped by the tapestry that the Lord has woven in my own life over 40 years of ministry and missions. And I'd like to know your feeling. Maybe you're a young person that was all, excited about going into missions, and this kind of shook your world a little bit. I'd say it's the best thing you could read. If you're thinking seriously about being a missionary in today's world, in 2019, heading into this part of the next decade, you need to read this article. You need to think about the questions asked here and your role in missions in the future. It's worth it. Am I saying, that there's no room for a missionary? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just telling you that the role of a missionary changes with time and should change. It changes with the maturity of the national church. It should change. So those things are what the conversation revolves around when you read an article like this. So I'm praying that this article will stir the hearts of serious people. I know your heart and your intention is good, but I trust that you'll ask yourselves a lot of hard questions, and you'll find the most useful and effective role that you could have if you decide that you're being sent actually to go to the mission field, or whether you're called to be a co-missionary. Like, that's what we like to call ourselves. We're more co-missionaries. We come alongside, we collaborate, we cooperate with national leaders and national church movements. We're really co-missionaries. I don't define myself anymore as a missionary. If somebody says, are you a missionary? No, I don't. I don't define myself as a missionary. I'm not a missionary. I'm a co-missionary. And hopefully, I'm a great commissionary. That whatever I'm doing, I'm involved in seeing the great commission come to pass.
Yeah. Well, I love it. There are a few more quotes we want to bring out. On page 37 in the magazine, it says this: Martin carved out his own unique contribution as a missionary, bringing his IT background to serve the local church. So he re-engaged, but
Yes.
with the skills that God had given him.
Yeah, and granted, he doesn't have a theology degree. Dwight doesn't. He grew up in a Christian home, grew up in an environment of translation and the Bible, and he's very well versed and very well read.
Yes.
He's a brilliant guy, but he brought his skills, he brought his passion to serve people. to serve the local church. And, he's done it very well. And I believe that we're only beginning to see the first fruits even of this new breed of missionary like Dwight, who will give their professional expertise and talent to come alongside and help the local church, help the national church achieve its goals and be part of the Great Commission. So Dwight is a good example of the new generation of co-missionaries, and he happens to be a great commissionary.
He does. Amen. Oh. Well, so give us feedback, like my dad had said, on this video, on the article, on our missions model. Go ahead and go into our website, click around, look at the links. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can like this video. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share. Share our Facebook post, share Twitter feeds, and just kind of help us keep this going, because there is a great need, and it will take all of us working together to see the Great Commission lived out with all these locals going out from village to village.
Yeah, it's the only way that the Great Commission will ever be accomplished, is if the local people do what Jesus said to do and go and preach and disciple make and baptize and see the kingdom of God spread. All of us have to be involved in that process. And thankfully, there are local people, local Christians in many countries of the world now, quite strong. The research is telling us that a lot of denominations now, even U.S.-based denominations, have tilted to the point where they have more members overseas than they have domestically. So that should also tell us that it's time to look at our missions model. It's time to reevaluate our role in, even within denominations, our role in global Christianity, even when it comes to our own members overseas, and how much say and how much goals, and how much do we need to come alongside them and become co-missionaries. So it's a discussion that needs to be had, and we thank you for listening into this one today, and I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll be back with us a few more times.
Thanks again, guys.